Imagine climbing into an aircraft, knowing the statistics say you might not come back. Not because of one specific battle, but because every single mission could be your last. At 20,000 feet above Europe, inside a freezing metal tube filled with fuel, explosives, and enemy fire, thousands of young airmen flew missions that many would later describe as flying straight through hell. This was life aboard the B-17 Flying Fortress, one of the most legendary aircraft of World War II, and one of the most terrifying places a human could exist. The B-17 was a technological giant for its time. 4 engines, heavy bomb loads, and up to 13 machine guns defending every angle. Its ability to absorb incredible damage earned it the nickname Flying Fortress. But for the 10 men inside, it rarely felt like a fortress. It felt exposed, deafeningly loud, and incredibly fragile. The sky itself was the first enemy. Missions took place at altitudes where oxygen is too thin to breathe. The aircraft wasn't pressurized, so crews depended entirely on oxygen masks. If a line froze or broke, unconsciousness could happen within minutes. Temperatures dropped as low as -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Metal surfaces became lethally cold. Touching them without gloves could tear skin from a man's hand. Airmen wore electrically heated flight suits, but failures were common. Frostbite wasn't just a risk, it was an expectation. Veterans recalled watching fellow crewmen quietly lose consciousness when oxygen stopped flowing, falling asleep forever unless someone noticed in time. Even before reaching enemy airspace, crews faced another deadly challenge: formation flying. Dozens of bombers launched seconds apart, then had to assemble into massive, tight formations to create overlapping fields of defensive gunfire. One pilot's mistake, one mechanical failure, and multiple aircraft could collide and be lost instantly. Training accidents alone killed thousands of airmen before they ever saw combat. Over enemy territory, the sky itself exploded. German anti-aircraft guns fired timed shells that detonated at bomber altitude. These bursts filled the air with razor-sharp metal fragments called flak. A direct hit could vaporize a bomber, but even near misses shredded aluminum skins, severed control cables, and wounded crew members. The worst part was the helplessness of it all. Flying straight through black clouds of explosions, watching nearby aircraft vanish in fire, never knowing which burst had your name on it. Then came the fighters. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs attacked in coordinated waves, their cannons tearing through metal in seconds. Inside the bomber, every position had its own unique horror. The waist gunner stood at open windows, exposed to the freezing wind and enemy fire with little protection. The tail gunner sat isolated in a cramped rear compartment, a lonely watchman against death approaching from behind. But the most feared position was the ball turret. A single gunner curled into a small, rotating sphere suspended below the bomber. There was no room for a parachute inside. If the hydraulics failed or the aircraft had to crash land before he could escape, the gunner could be trapped with no way out. Many never made it back from that position. If a B-17 was hit but could still fly, pilots fought to keep it airborne, sometimes limping home with engines destroyed and gaping holes in the fuselage. If the aircraft couldn't stay in the air, the bailout order came. Crew members helped each other reach exits, jumping into freezing skies over enemy territory. The B-17 Flying Fortress became a symbol of Allied air power. But behind that legend were young crews facing extreme cold, relentless fire, and overwhelming odds. Their courage wasn't just flying into combat, it was climbing back into that aircraft, mission after mission, knowing exactly what horrors waited for them in the sky.